I myself have been in the Yom Kippur War more than 50 years ago, and I could see that the protection of the Lord of God over Israel was and is miraculous. It's a big miracle.
I'm so pleased to introduce you today to someone I consider to be very wise. I've been following his writings and interviews for years. Joining me today is historian Dr. Gershon Nerel. Dr. Nerel has researched the phenomenon of Jewish believers in Jesus in the land of Israel, and he completed his research at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In response to many comments on my videos, the question I'm bringing to him in this video is the replacement theology genuinely valid?
I must say that I totally reject the understanding, the interpretation of replacement theology, as if the nations of the world, or even the Christians of the world, or the churches in the world, as if they replace Israel. No, absolutely not. Because Israel has a special calling, which is not for the non-Jews. It is not for the Gentiles. The Gentiles, they should do their own calling, and Israel should remain with its own calling in the promised land to the Jews. And I have no doubt that the replacement theology is wrong, is misleading, and sadly, many try in the world today to resurrect the theology of replacement. This is wrong. This is totally wrong. Israel is still valid. The promises to Israel are still valid. They are not given to the other nations. The promises to Israel in the Bible are valid. And also the curses remain valid because Israel suffered a lot. Because in the Torah it's very clearly said, if you follow my way, Israel, you will be blessed. If you don't follow my way, the Lord says to Israel, you will suffer, and suffer heavily. And we know the sufferings that the Jews have suffered even in the last century, if I mention only the Holocaust. But the Jews suffered much earlier, during the Crusades and other persecutions. The 400 years in slavery in Egypt, I have no doubt, Israel is chosen as a tool in the hands of the Lord of the universe. I understand the Father in heaven, as we say in the Lord's Prayer, our Father in heaven, He gave everything to His Son, the Lord Yeshua, and the Lord Yeshua controls the universe. I have no doubt that He keeps Israel, He uses Israel, He blesses Israel. I always say that this is a huge miracle, how we can fight against all these Arab nations, against missiles. I myself have been in the Yom Kippur War more than 50 years ago. And I could see that the protection of the Lord of God over Israel was and is miraculous. It's a big miracle. As far as I can understand, the Jews have their own calling to remain Israel, to keep the Hebrew language, and to remain a place for the returning Messiah, for the coming back of the Messiah, and to keep Jerusalem. I believe Jerusalem must be Jewish. And what is the role of the non-Jews, of the other nations, of the Gentiles? They also have a role. They also have a task. First of all, they should read the scriptures that came from Israel. They have a text which they should take seriously, very seriously. The text coming through the Jews, through the Jewish prophets, through the Jewish patriarchs, through the Messiah, the Lord Yeshua of Israel and of all the nations. But the key to understand history, to understand the developments, to understand the meaning of our life is through Israel. Only when people from the nations, from around the world, look at what's happening with Israel, in the land of Israel, they will understand the plans of God. They will understand the fulfillment of prophecies given more than 2,000 years ago. For example, Isaiah, he lived 2,800 years ago. The prophet Daniel, 2,500 years ago. They have big prophecies. The Gentiles, the nations, they have to learn them, to understand them. And, yes, to pray for Israel, to pray for the Jews. Yes, to pray and to love the Jewish people, not to hate them. It is demonic. It is satanic to persecute and to make troubles to the Jews. This is satanic. The Gentiles should love the Jews, should bless them, and then they will be blessed as well. They will be rewarded. They will get a blessing from the Lord of the universe. So, all together, Jews and non-Jews, they have each one his plan in God's grand plan, master plan, if we can say so. I like to give the example of a couple. In a couple, the husband has his place, the wife has his place. The wife cannot replace the husband. The husband cannot replace the wife. The same way with the Jews and the Gentiles. The Gentiles should not replace the Jews should not replace the Gentiles. And this is very important in my eyes. I hear the arguments, which is an old argument, about 2,000 years old, that we should not love the Jews because they murdered the Messiah. But this is not the role of the Gentiles to judge the Jews. They will have their judgment from their Father in heaven. But this is an anti-Semitic slogan, murderers of the Messiah, or even something more crazy, God murderers. The Messiah is the Son of God, not the God. God is the Father in heaven. We must always make the clarification that God the Father was not crucified. It's the Son of God who was crucified in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. So we must be very careful. It's not the task of the Gentiles to judge the Jews. And this is just an excuse, a pretext to hate the Jews and to persecute the Jews by saying that they are God killers, what is known as deicide. Deicide. This is wrong. This is demonic. This is satanic. This should not happen, because the Jews are chosen. It is written about the Jewish people that they are even the apple of the eye of the Lord, because they are precious. They have sinned. And the one who should punish them is the God of the universe, not the Gentiles. Not the Gentiles. That's not their role.